I stood there, I was just amazed at the star-filled sky. The night was crisp, cold, and quiet. As I started to turn back towards the bivvy, I had noticed the spot in the tree line where the branches were just barely visibly swaying back and forth. The moon was out and almost full, so I could see a decent distance, but the trees were so dense I couldn't see into it.
You could skip this ad, but don't skip the part that can help you get the job done. At Grainger, we're here for you with supplies and solutions for every industry. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
About shoulder width apart, hands at its side, calm and quiet, to pissed off and angry in a split second. Its stance was like that of the old Incredible Hulk. It seemed to grow another 8 to 10 inches, and it took another step out of the tree line. It rolled its shoulders forward, upper arms extended at a 45-degree angle to the ground, fists clenched and pointing almost straight down. And then that roar howled snow towards the site, not turning my back to it, but not facing it fully. About halfway, I looked to see if anyone had stirred around the site, and there was nothing. When I turned my head back towards this thing, it was gone. The trees weren't swaying, and I didn't hear any movement. No breathing, no growling. But I am positive that it was still there. We had asserted our positions to each other, and I had drawn the short straw. I had to leave. I turned and saw him again. I moved to the East Coast, far away from California, far from Pendleton, and far from my ex-wife back in '96. I haven't returned to California since, nor do I have plans to. But every once in a while, I think back. Why didn't that creature attack? Why didn't Tom stay back and help me identify what I saw? Why didn't anyone get up and check out the noise? Did Tom tell them to stand down? The funny thing is, I don't harbor any animosity towards him. I kind of wish I could bring myself to go back, just to see the creature. Watching it suddenly skip to my right and then crawl up a tree really freaked me out, causing me to turn and run towards the house. My parents noticed me before I made it over there. I guess my body language gave it away that something had spooked me. My mom asked what was wrong as she rushed outside to scoop me up. I told them I saw a spider monkey man and he was watching me from the woods. I remember how Martin walked over to the wood line to ensure nobody was trespassing my property. And other unidentified cryptids. But it was my first encounter that scared me the most for a couple of reasons. The first is because although I knew about the legend of Bigfoot, and I believed wholeheartedly in it, it was somehow still unexpected. Also, no matter how many times you hear about something like this, it's a whole different ballgame once you see it or encounter one for yourself. Where I lived, there was nothing else around for miles and miles. Not at all really after the sun went down. Our house had started out as a little log cabin that had been built on in the early 1900s by one person on my dad's side of the family, and it had been inherited down through the generations ever since. With each generation, there have been many additions added onto the house, and to the property as well. And nowadays, it looks so much different than the tiny shack it was way back then. My siblings and I will inherit it one day too, and then our kids, and so on, until someone finally sells it. It's a huge piece of land, and a lot of the value is in the woods beyond where the backyard ends. There isn't an outhouse anymore, but there is still Bigfoot. As I described to him what I had just seen, I told him how tall it was, and how big its feet had been. This creature had red fur all over, and it walked on 2 legs like a human. It looked so strong and muscular, and though I didn't get a good look at its face, its head looked like it was almost the same shape as a human being's. At first he just laughed, because he thought I was trying to pull a prank on him. But he quickly saw that I really wasn't kidding, and it knocked me to the ground. The horses were terrified of something, and I knew none of them had just thrown the small boulder at my face. I heard the same growling that my siblings heard, and that I heard in the woods earlier that day. I looked up, and once my vision cleared, I saw the Bigfoot that I think had been stalking me at the outhouse, just standing there with another large rock in its hand, glaring at me. It seemed like it hated me, and it was really upset about something.
Swaths of wooded areas and swampland. The Shawnee National Forest comprises a large part of the portion of the state as well. I'm a dog trainer. I own a kennel operation outside of a small community. We live approximately 5 miles from town, with stretches of woods and creeks surrounding our home and kennel. 10 years ago, on an October evening, I was sitting in my recliner in the living room watching television. My wife was in the back bedroom watching TV there. I would guess that it was around 8 p.m., possibly a bit later. Our living room, where I was, these guys were close. I'd guess no more than 100 yards across the creek. Still, the dogs made no sound at all. We finally went back inside and didn't hear anything else the remainder of the evening. The next night, my wife was awakened around 2:30 a.m. to an identical howl, but much farther away. I slept through it and she told me about it the next morning. After that, we went bass fishing on the Little Tennessee River one late summer afternoon. I fished until it was almost dark, and I decided to find a cove to anchor down in and spend the night. I do this quite often so that I can start fishing again at daybreak. I found a cove and I was surrounded by woodlands, and I anchored down. It's always so nice to sleep in my open boat on a clear night. I usually lay back, as well as the park across the cove from the ramp, very close to where I had my experiences. This story is submitted by MJ, and she lives in California. I think she still does. Let's just read the story, and I think you're going to find this crazy. In the summer of 1994, my husband and I bought a brand new home in one of the many housing subdivisions being built in the Sacramento Valley during the 1990s housing boom. The area had originally been chosen to spend a few minutes with him before he would be off. I would go back to bed and try to sleep before the baby would wake up to nurse around 5:30 a.m. I would feed her in bed and then lay her between me and our 4-year-old son, and the three of us would snuggle and sleep until around 8:30 before we started our day. We were so spoiled. On this Monday, after he started screaming and swinging my arms and kicking, and I remembered that I said out loud, "Oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind." I felt that I could not take the fact that this creature was there. It was just there in the room, above my baby's bassinet in the house. It floated from its original position above the bassinet to just above my face. And I remember seeing this light when I opened my eyes. I knew there was nothing I could do to protect us. That made me more frightened than anything. My husband continued to commute for another 6 months, so I was still alone in the evening. That was the worst part. For weeks, every night, I would stay up just until I could see daylight before I felt safe to fall asleep. I would leave the TV on and the bedroom lights on and fight sleep until I would see the early sunlight peek through the windows. I didn't feel safe. We could never put our finger on it. We just didn't like going back there. Again, it was just creepy. Thinking back, there was a gravel road that us kids used to take to the old country store a couple of miles away. We were able to avoid the busy main road to get there. That gravel road covered a section of those creepy woods. It was just close enough to the main road where you could hear the traffic, so it didn't saw it, so we knew we were not making it up. We told my mom and sister when we got home, and they thought we were trying to scare them. Well, we went out the next day and we walked around the field where we saw it, and there was a lone pine tree on that end of the field, 25 feet from where we had seen the shadow. At a best guess, we determined this creature was at least 8 feet tall. Now remember, the ground was dry, so we never found any tracks. Over the next, and that's just what kids do. But I have no doubt what you encountered that night. And the last couple of podcasts I've done, I've talked about, it may seem like I'm discounting feelings. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, be a critical thinker and think this through. Think it through. And don't let these things change. Don't let one event or one feeling change your life forever. Stay out in those woods and have a good time. There's no reason to be afraid of the woods. And I know I say this all the time, but I really care that people get out and enjoy that stuff. So That was one line. I thought I'd say it. All right, let's go to another one. Other side of the highway and farther away than I was prepared to travel. At the bottom of the mountain, I remembered seeing an old logging road that ran up the gorge to the left of the stream. I decided that would be the easiest and quickest way to the river. After fighting my way through the thick undergrowth, I finally found the path. Beside it was a nice flat spot with a push pile left for making the road. So I decided to scratch around again. My mind continued to race. I knew in order to get back to camp, I had to go towards where this thing had just been. I was suddenly tying the sounds that I had heard earlier in the day attributed to the deer to this thing. I realized it must have been following me. When I was trying to get out of the rhododendron, I must have inadvertently flanked it, I thought, or it was stalking me. At that moment, it's an Ohio story. It has a little bit of a woo theme to it at the end. Just hang on and wait. You're gonna like this. He says, I live in central Ohio and I'd rather remain anonymous. No problem. I go out hiking in the woods looking for Sasquatch and the art they make in the form of structures and arches. Earlier this year, I started exploring a forest where, just driving through it, I found all kinds of signs on both sides of the road. I've hiked this area for maybe 3 or 4 months now, and everywhere I've been so far has had evidence of structure breaks, arches, uprooted trees, busted trees, and tracks. The whole time I couldn't get rid of the feeling that I shouldn't have taken that sapling. The restroom was a small building with a metal roof, and a concrete block wall separated the men's side from the women's. We were only in there for about 3 or 4 minutes. I could hear the rain pinging on the tin roof, but then a rock hit the side of the building. When we came out, I asked my wife if she heard anything. She hadn't. Furthermore, the sun had come out. I worked, and then I heard a noise in the palmettos. I thought it was probably an armadillo because, believe it or not, they can sound like a bull coming through the woods. As the sound approached, I heard a grunt. Well, it's more like a growl, or more like a 1,500-pound kitten purring. I told Kenny to shine the light over there, and that's when we both realized that we were looking at something 10 feet tall, and it weighed 1,000 pounds at least.
Well, here we are on a Tuesday, folks, just wrapping it up. You know what I usually do on Tuesdays, a barbell incline and with some dumbbell rows. I know last Tuesday I had to switch it up, you know, and I'm still nursing this little strain or whatever the fuck. But tonight I wanted to stay on that exercise, so I started off a little lighter. I normally would do, you know, the 185 on the bar, you know, what I'm doing on these Tuesday workouts. And I'll do the 8 sets with that, you know, 10 reps. But this time, I already know it ain't quite all the way back 100% yet, so I just started off with 175. And, you know, I was able to work with that, you know, which I could have did 185, but I'd just been, you know, fucking struggling and straining, you know, probably maybe even injured myself a little worse, or just had shitty form, or strained the other damn side for overcompensating, whatever. So I started 175. It was good weight, wasn't too heavy. You know, it was a little bit to struggle with once you get on up in the sets. After the 4th set, I dropped it down to 165. I was getting a little fatigued. Wanted to try to maintain, you know, some half-ass decent form, and we finished out from there. And so that's it for Tuesday. We all done out here. I'm going in the house now. Do some ab work a little bit, you know. I don't really like doing that, but I want at least, you know, a few abs to show. So you got to put in some kind of damn work, man. Got to build them a little bit. I don't care if you have 0% body fat. If you don't build them muscles, you're just gonna have a flat stomach, which is cool. But you know, I want some cuts. You know, did pretty good last year cutting, carving out on the sides. I want some in the middle now, so I got to go in there and put a little ab work in, get all my vitamins and shit together for tomorrow. take a shower. That's it, man. Chill out for the rest of the night. I'll be back out here Thursday. And we'll see what's going to happen Thursday. It's the inclines again. It's dumbbell day that day, so we'll see what happens. Now, I'm guessing if today I'm, not quite all the way back, I probably won't be in either, but so probably won't be going to failure Thursday, but we're still going to get that dumbbell work. We're going to do some numbered sets more than likely and probably, add something, combine some other exercise in there with it. So, till then, man, y'all take it easy.